Greetings, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so glad you are here. Thanks for tuning in. Tonight, we'll continue our reading of Brainwashed by Tom Burrell. We're on chapter 7, starting on page 135. It asks the question, why can't we stop shopping? Remember, this show is part of a podcasting network called KWAZ Radio. There are other hosts on the network, such as Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, Oni from the Pro Black Perspective, The Forecast from Forecast Radio, D Web from Harsh Reality Podcast, Brother Bakari from the Black Business Network, Cassidra Cheek from the Cassidra Cheek Show, and so many others. We hope you'll tune in to enjoy what they have to offer. This book is copywritten material and we are using it for educational purposes. Hopefully, we will not infringe upon anyone's copyright. That is not our intent. It is our intent to review and expound upon the information provided in the text. Thank you. Chapter 7, Buy Now, Pay Later, starts with a quote from Will, who's a 40-year-old teacher. He says, "For the young kids, it's about having brand new white gym shoes. They are impoverished, but they are buying $200 gym shoes, clothes I can't afford, and I have a job, you know? Why aren't their families putting that money into savings, into a college fund? Why do they have to have a $300 phone but no computer?" It was a time of great optimism for four-time NBA All-Star Latrell Sprewell. The money was flowing at such an awesome pace during the 2004-2005 season that the superstar was able to reject a 3-year, $21 million extension to his already $14.6 million contract with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Yes, less than 3 years later, numerous news agencies reported on the financial woes of Sprewell, who hadn't played pro ball since rejecting the offer. Apparently, the basketball player owed about $70,000 in unpaid taxes. His company, Sprewell Motorsports, had not paid credit card bills in months. His home was up for foreclosure, and his $1 million yacht was auctioned off to help pay what he owed back on the boat. Black kids who dream of having the glorious lives of basketball superstars should know, according to statistics cited by the NBA Players Association, that about 60% of the retired basketball players go broke within 5 years after leaving the NBA. Since Black players dominate professional basketball, it's safe to assume that a large proportion of that 60% are Black. Sprewell is an appropriate example of the financial slam dunk NBA players face after the limelight dims. But basketball is not the only dominion where Black wealth is often an intangible facade. Before he passed away in June of 2009, the king of pop, Michael Jackson, lived way above his already overextended means. According to Newsweek, Jackson's history of bad management, excessive personal spending, and big legal bills left him at death facing bankruptcy. Jackson had run up hundreds of millions in personal debt borrowed against his assets. Newsweek estimated his total borrowing may have exceeded $400 million. Yet during the 2003 documentary, Living with Michael Jackson, Jackson took British journalist Martin Bashir and his camera crew on a lavish, multi-million-dollar Vegas shopping spree, purchasing elaborate vases, marble chess sets, 10-foot urns, and other expensive objects as if they were M&Ms. Even as Jackson's world was collapsing under debt, the media captured other spending exploits. In 2005, $150,000 blown in under 30 minutes at Harrods, which is a luxury London department store, and another impromptu midnight shopping spree in 2006 at London's trendy Top Shop on Oxford Street. We can never know for sure, but it seems as if the extravagant purchases were the late entertainer's way of replacing the reality of insecurity and low self esteem with the illusion of comfort and control. It's a reality shared by millions of emotionally fractured but less fortunate Blacks. Bravo Cable Television Network's Real Housewives of Atlanta was promoted as a reality series showcasing the professional, social, and family lives of five suburban Atlanta women. Four of the five housewives are African American. During the first season, the women were living large, showing off custom built mansions, luxury cars, and designer clothes. Viewers tagged along as the women enjoyed private spas and Botox appointments. They attended highbrow parties and fundraisers, and one even had an $18,000 birthday party hosted for her 11-year-old daughter. Turns out, according to numerous media outlets, three of the four Black housewives were actually broke or struggling to hold on to what they had. One of the women, who filed bankruptcy in 2007, was evicted from her multi-million-dollar Duluth, Georgia mansion and faced a lawsuit from her ex-husband for defaulting on a $150,000 loan. The spouse of another housewife owed more than $100,000 in taxes. The couple's five-bedroom home, seen on the show, was actually rental property from which they were eventually evicted due to missed payments. News reports also noted that another cast member bounced a $346 check, had to sell her lavish home, and 2008 was forced to take her children out of private school and enroll them in public school. The women seem to have followed paths blazed by Black notables whose fortunes were squandered due to personal flaws, lack of financial education, or a need to boost their self esteem through spending. The Atlanta housewives aren't the only ones who take cues from celebrities. Those of us who are getting by and those who are but one paycheck away from poverty like to live like the rich and famous too. We wear the clothes they wear, consume the products they endorse, and try our damnedest to live the life, the celebrity high life. There's a historical timeline of Black money madness that spans the eras of vaudeville, segregated basketball, and the Black entertainers only Chitlin circuit. Unfortunately, it's a negative timeline we still share today. Our situation has been the makings of a classic good news, bad news joke. First, the good news. We live in the richest consumer society on earth. Black collective buying power is almost 800 billion annually. The bad news, because of our undisciplined, indiscriminate buying habits, African Americans are still America's poorest group. I will add the note here that Black Americans also don't own any assets. They don't own real estate like other groups own. They don't own their own businesses like other groups own. So it's very difficult for African Americans to build that wealth when we don't own any tangible assets. The bad news affects Blacks on all income levels. A study by Demos and the Institute for Assets and Social Policy, released in August of 2009, revealed that millions of middle income earning Blacks, from factory workers to bank tellers to white collar managers, are slipping towards destitution. Although the recession threatens the elimination of the total black middle class, the study pointed out that 33% of this particular demographic was already in danger of falling out of the middle class status before the economic downturn. Just as low income blacks are devastated by the subprime mortgage catastrophe, so were middle and upper income African Americans. In fact, the Center for Responsible Lending reported that high income blacks were almost twice as likely as low income whites to receive high interest subprime loans. Upper income Black and Hispanic homebuyers were more likely to face foreclosures due to high cost subprime mortgage loans than whites, even though the groups had similar credit ratings. In the greater Boston area alone, noted Jim Campen, a University of Massachusetts economist, 70% of the Black and Hispanic borrowers with incomes between $92,000 and $152,000 received high interest rate home loans compared to 17% for whites. According to Demos, Black groups, upper, middle, and lower classes, experience disproportionate rates of financial risk due to abundant credit card debt and high interest purchases of depreciating items such as cars, electronics, and fancy appliances. Low income Blacks, however, are the dominant supporters of the multi billion-dollar payday loan and rent to own entities that can charge triple digit interest rates and rent merchandise at sometimes more than 200% above the manufacturer's suggested retail price. I'll add here, rich people don't usually pay bills. They acquire assets and file bankruptcy, but poor people purchase consumer goods and pay those bills off. My nieces and nephews all live at home and are either unemployed or underemployed. Yet they are rocking Air Force Ones, apple bottom jeans, and they can keep a bottle of Grey Goose under their bed. They look like they have something going on, but they really don't. A complete consumer mentality with no income, says an elder care worker named Tony, who's 36. We start addressing our failure to stay on par with other ethnic groups who increase their wealth by honestly answering a few true or false questions. True or false? Blacks often purchase because it makes them feel better. That's unfortunately true. True or false? Blacks purchase high priced liquor, designer clothes, and fancy cars simply because these items represent the quote unquote best. That's true. And our celebrities advertise these products to us, and we think that because something is expensive, that means it's the best. True or false? Blacks place more value on what's in the garage or closet than what's in their bank accounts or stock portfolios. That's unfortunately true. True or false? Blacks distrust financial institutions. Many of those who do save sock their money away at home or other places deemed safer. That's also true because every time we have trusted the banks have unfortunately found ways to either take our money outright or crash the bank. We have a significant history of white people in power charging us undue fees or crashing the Freedmen's Bank. And these people expect us to trust banks. Your answers reveal the deep dynamics of the buy now, pay later syndrome. There are some buy now, pay later dynamics. The first one is living large while feeling low. African Americans have a tendency to overcompensate through material brazenness. We seek the best to prove we are the best, using our dollars as defense mechanisms to show them that we are worthy. Blacks have a strange loyalty to the best brand because subpar products remind us of our perceived subpar status. Number two, gotta have it now. Greetings, KW Don 7. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm glad you're here. We're on page 139 of Brainwashed, talking about some of our spending habits. Gotta have it now. This is intergenerational, instant gratification component to our spending and savings habits. As uninformed consumers, we are susceptible to marketing pleas to have it now, as opposed to saving, investing, or putting off unaffordable purchases. Number three, paying the black tax. We expect and willingly pay more for products that are often at what are often astronomical interest rates. We endure a wide range of financial penalties due to our uncontrolled desire to live large and have it now. Number four, eat, drink, and be merry. For many of us, life is and always has been considered fragile and unpredictable. Since tomorrow is never promised, we must have desired products now at any and all cost. This attitude also explains why we hesitate to risk our hard earned money in financial institutions or the stock market. Number five, dollars and cents. Blacks have been systematically excluded, and we've been excluded ourselves from learning the economic ABCs of American life. This has not only turned us into easily seduced buyers, but it also handicapped builders of personal and communal wealth. These dynamics accentuate the mystery of why we lag behind others who have amassed generational wealth through financial acuity. To reverse this pattern, we must first understand how our consumer and savings patterns link to our psychological need to salve 400-year-old wounds. This next section starts with a quote from an internet salesman named Alan, who's 49 years old. He says, "When I was a kid, we had a 3 cycle. We'd have the flashy cars, the big TVs. My mother would rock the furs and diamond rings. Then we would either go bankrupt or my father would get arrested. There was no temperance, no middle road for us. We were either sky high or had our faces in the dirt. You get used to that kind of stuff." The buy now sales pitches are all around. We are flooded with offers to purchase every day and every minute. Messages in magazines and on billboards, radio, TV, the internet, bus kiosks, t-shirts, taxi roofs, tote bags, blimps, and stuffed in envelopes with the bills for the stuff we've already bought. It's difficult for any American to resist the relentless marketing barrage and gain a modicum of financial foothold. But I believe the cues to incessantly buy resonate differently with a race that had to secure the right to be treated as humans and force white businesses to treat them like any other American consumer. Unlike whites, we were denied the basic right to be free willed consumers. Restrictive but legal covenants excluded African Americans from purchasing homes in neighborhoods considered white. We could not patronize white only diners, theaters, clubs, and colleges or shop in many stores. For centuries, spending money, just like white folk, was not even a possibility. That all changed after we fought for the right to force our money upon whites. Greetings, forecast. Thanks for tuning in. I'm so glad you're here. We're reading Brainwashed. We're on page 141. Now, when he says that all changed after we fought for the right to force our money upon whites, he's talking about integration. And he's saying that it was probably a bad thing because we had more Black wealth in Black neighborhoods and Black communities, and there was more upward mobility because in those neighborhoods and communities, you had doctors, teachers, lawyers, drug dealers, you had the hustlers, you had the number man, you had the pimp, the prostitute. You had a variety of people and lifestyles that you could see in your own Black community living their lives as prosperously as they could. You saw the good and the bad, and you had someone you could usually go to for mentorship if there was a career that you were interested in. So, yes, we sat down at those counters, had dogs sicked on us, had water hoses blown on us, had bleach poured in pools, had different things happen to us. We were spat on, we were pissed on. There are many things that happened just to force these white folks to take our money because that's the only type of integration that happened. There was no mutual integration because they were never going to shop in our stores. What happened is our stores closed down because we were able to go spend our money with white folks. Greetings, Sister Raw and the elders listening with you. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm so glad you're here. We're on page 141 of Brainwashed. How, you ask, did this financial and emotional rejection, supported by the incessant, centuries long Black inferiority campaign, affect us? Consider the sit ins that accelerated the civil rights movement. Black Americans and their white or Jewish supporters risked life and limb to force the Southern lunch counters, restaurants, and stores to accept our business. In fact, much of the movement was about gaining the right to consume like whites. Whether patronizing restaurants and hotels or buying clothes, cars, televisions, or homes, we were in survival mode, flexing our equal rights muscles while forsaking our economic education heads. Not to downplay the dismantling of legal segregation, but the major thrust of the civil rights movement included the demand that whites allow us to consume their products and utilize their services. The profound irony of the movement was that it clogged arteries that recirculated hard earned cash back into Black communities and businesses. Instead, the flow was rerouted to benefit white power brokers and businesses. During slavery, Blacks had little to no control over their lives and fates. This seeded a sense of living in the now in our psyches. In a society where rank is determined by material wealth, we are still seeking to buy a lost status. only this time through mindless, unbridled consumption. And remember, they even made a video called Selling the Negro. You can find it here on YouTube. The next section starts with a quote from the 3-6 Mafia song, Like Money. Get a good look at me, dummy. I said, look, I feel, I smell like money. Prevalent socioeconomic conditions combined with historic prejudices have resulted in a case of low self-esteem or low racial esteem that has affected our purchasing behavior. I myself haven't exactly been immune to these feelings of inadequacy. I was raised during a time when Blacks seemed grateful that car dealers wanted their money. I may be discriminated against, but General Motors will sell me anything I want, we'd say. Years ago, as a fledgling executive, I obtained a charge account at an exclusive store. Initially, I think just to demonstrate to my white coworkers that I too could have an account. It most certainly wasn't because my salary justified my shopping there. That fall day remains with me. The temperature suddenly dropped, and I ducked into this particularly elite store looking for gloves. I waited at the counter while two sales clerks carried on a clearly personal conversation. Finally, one of them acknowledged me with a disdainful look and snipped, Do you want something? Instead of leaving, I found myself, despite the unprofessional treatment, buying a pair of gloves priced far beyond what I could afford just to show them that they had underestimated me. There were also times when I've been in high-end stores and felt self-conscious about asking about the price of an item. The mere question seemed like an indictment against my social status. This sentiment is probably shared by other upwardly mobile African Americans who believe that asking a store clerk, especially a white store clerk, about a product's cost somehow implies an inability to afford the merchandise. Haven't we heard this before? Isn't this something that goes on with us as a community? Don't we tell each other, if you have to ask the price, you can't afford it? That's a lie and a trick. Acquiring expensive commodities, this conspicuous consumption, is our way of telling the world that we have arrived and we are good enough. Meanwhile, as we send these expensive communiques or signals of our worth, manufacturers of all the stuff are in on the joke, chuckling their way to the bank. Our history of feeling inferior fuels the propensity for African Americans to buy name brands we perceive to be the best. Knowing that we can be considered less than, less smart, less capable, less clean, less law abiding, less generous, less worthy, less, spawned a reflexive need to demonstrate that we are equally, if not more, worthy. In 2005, Yankelovich Monitor Multicultural Marketing Study, in collaboration with Burrell Communications, revealed that brand choice is far more an emotional decision for Blacks in terms of what it says about us than it is for whites. African Americans in this study agreed with the following statements. The brand you buy tells a lot about the type of person you are. 47% Black versus 35% other. I like to buy brands that make me feel I've made it. 46% Black versus 30% other. And lastly, brands give me a level of emotional satisfaction. 67% Black versus 43% other. Everyone but us seems to be aware of our consumer clout and buying habits. During a July 2009 conversation on the Branding Strategy Insider blog, frequent contributor Mark Ritson discussed gender, age, and ethnic loyalty to luxury brands, saying, I personally believe that the face of luxury, people who lead that market are, for me, for the most part, African American. It would be a mistake to see, for example, the hip hop community as not being consistent with the luxury brands. If anyone has grasped the true meaning and heritage of luxury brands, it is that the African American community. This emotional void drives the hip hop generation's insatiable hunger for blingier bling, shinier cars, pricier liquor, and premium priced products. According to the 2008 study, Young Urban Consumer Market in the US, conducted by Report Buyer, an online source for businesses, news, and trends, hip hop artists set the trends for the $594 billion young urban consumer market. The brands that are spontaneously embraced and experience significant sales in this young demographic are those that appear to be genuinely used by hip hop artists and featured in their lyrics or videos. This is why they send hip hop artists free merchandise to get their brand out there. This is why they give them free liquor to give the appearance of genuine use. Young Black fans paying ludicrously high prices for brand name items may be influenced by hip hop artists, but in reality, they're continuing a trend established long before their births. It was in the slaveholders' best interest to keep slaves in such despair that they could concentrate only on servitude and survival. Deprived and beaten down emotionally, slaves had little left that inspired them to even imagine a future. For hundreds of years, survival was our sole focus. Slavery, oppression, vicious Jim Crow laws, and the government's failure to assure our rights and safety solidified and legitimized levels of extreme insecurity. Life's uncertainty and cruelty conditioned us to grab whatever pleasures we could, the best pleasures, and the quickest way possible. Under the post emancipation sharecropping system, whites deliberately saw to it that Black farmers never got ahead. No matter how diligently they farmed, they fell deeper in debt to the landowner or storekeeper who supplied land, fertilizer, seed, mules, equipment, or whatever else they needed. Debt peonage replaced the chains of slavery. Whites still kept Black sharecroppers impoverished and reliant on generally high interest commissary credit advanced against the following year's crop. It's important to remember that this system too became an integral part of promoting the next brainwashing campaign. It birthed the concept that somehow the bad situation was the fault of the Black sharecropper who didn't harvest enough to cover the debt. Thus, the lender was able to cast himself as the good guy who helped the Black family survive rough times. There are many families whose stories begin and end with sharecropping because they never got to the point where they owned the land. And because they didn't own the land, they had to borrow and pay landlord fees. They had to pay for feed. They had to pay for the animals and the farm equipment. They had to pay for seed. They had to pay for feed for the animals. They had to feed their families. And then they had to go to these same people to get a valuation of the crops that they actually brought in. So then they could lie about how much the crop was actually worth, and they were just stealing from these people over and over and over again. During the Great Migration between 1910 and 1970, more than 6 million Black men, women, and children flooded the northern urban centers of America. The promise of better education and job opportunities up north outweighed the realities of brutal racism. While many Blacks received educational and job opportunities in meatpacking, steel, automotive, and other industrial and unionized industries, they also encountered a system of Northern racial oppression that was equally damaging to their well being. Racial segregation in the form of mortgage discrimination and redlining ensured that Blacks were kept out of white neighborhoods and confined to overcrowded inner city slums where rent gouging was common and slumlords were common. Whites were able to buy homes thanks to federal government initiatives such as the 1934 National Housing Act that measure, which helped kick off the post-war suburban housing boom, severely limited lending to African American communities because on the map they would literally draw a red line around areas where they would not lend money to. So you had to rent in those areas. Those areas were the only areas where you could find housing, and you could not get financed to purchase a house in those areas because of the crime rate and the statistics weren't good. It wasn't a good investment. The next section starts with another quote from Alan, who's our 49-year-old internet sales agent. I didn't pay my student loans for the longest time. I bought a BMW, rented a penthouse with a jacuzzi, bought out the bar for strangers. I needed to look like a big shot, like, hey, I've made it. For generations, we've been engaged in an effort to regain a sense of somebodyness through our material possessions and the way we dress. The slave owning family dressed nicely when they went to church or greeted guests or attended functions. The fine attire of whites contrasted sharply with the worn apparel of most slaves. The way we dressed became a source of tension between the lowly field servant and the often more respectably clothed house Negro. After bondage was no longer legal, the stigma of second class lowliness shadowed Blacks as they migrated north. Be it in Memphis or Harlem, on Friday and Saturday nights, Blacks adorned the best to feel like the best. The joint or neighborhood drinking establishments was the place where common laborers could get a quick shot of status. Once they hit the joint, Blacks were able to mingle and be somebody. The mad money dynamic in all of this esteem based spending was that Blacks not only spent disproportionately to look sharp, they'd often blow a day or a week's pay showing off, buying drinks, or participating in other costly nightlife sprees. The non club hopping crowd gained equal satisfaction on Sunday mornings. The one good suit, the fancy dresses, and elaborate hats worn to church contradicted the sense of lowliness the weekday uniform or daily work clothes represented, because they were often maids or mechanics, so they had uniforms to wear. For the Black generations, up until the 1960s, said Gail Lowe, creator of the 2000 Smithsonian exhibit on African American faith, the way we dressed for service was our way of honoring the church and satisfying our hunger for beauty and for self respect. I'll add a side note here. That's also how preachers and pastors became our pimps from the pulpit, because we would often say things like, I might not be able to afford this, but if we all get together and give a little bit of money, our pastor can afford it. And they have a level of racial pride and esteem in making sure that their pastors had nice things, even though they didn't have nice things. And that just fueled the pimping from the pulpit syndrome. Continuing. During my high school years, I worked all kind of jobs to raise enough money to buy a Brooks Brothers suit. For me and a couple of my buddies, it wasn't education or religion that kept us coming to school or church. It was all about showing up sharp. A quote from Booker T. Washington: the opportunity to earn $1 in a factory just now is worth more than the opportunity to spend $1 in an opera house. What he's saying here is that a better chance, it's a better chance given to you if you can get a job versus if you get the opportunity to go spend money in their stores. Although educator Booker T. Washington was criticized for urging the Blacks to amass social capital through education and manual labor only, he was still among the pioneers of the do for self economic responsibility movement. The founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, or the UNIA, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, took the message to an unprecedented level. In the 1920s, Garvey focused on teaching Blacks how to own and operate their own factories, grocery stores, restaurants, publishing houses, and international shipping companies. And that's why he was a threat, because he was unlocking the secrets behind how wealth is truly amassed. For those who lived in what was known as the black the capital of Black economic independence, Tulsa, Oklahoma, particularly the affluent Black Greenwood area, economic independence was a way of life. Before a deadly race riot decimated Greenwood in 1921, the region hosted 28 Black townships, more than 40 Black municipalities, and a host of independently owned and operated businesses. After Elijah Muhammad became the leader of the Nation of Islam in 1934, he centered the organization's mission on self determination, racial separation, cultural pride, and economic independence. Some of these attempts to build strong, self sustaining economic foundations were fraught with failure due to government manipulation, disunity, misplaced loyalty, and distracting, counterproductive ideologies. Still, some of these examples illustrate that since emancipation, there were Black leaders who thought seriously about the way we created, conserved, and invested our money. There was a brief attitude of self determination after the enactment of the civil rights legislation during the 1960s and 70s, and even into the 1980s, There was an inspiring rallying cry for race based solidarity, self determination, and an intense drive to play a bigger role in the economic arena. Unfortunately, the promise of prosperity through social integration, like migration's promise, proved to be another frustrating shell game. With fractured identities, we still attempt to buy respectability and status. We are still emotional spenders, and we are still vulnerable pawns of high priced vendors and predatory lenders. Excuse me. A fascination with luxury cars has been another big thing for many Blacks. On a psychological level, expensive cars represent fulfillable dreams. Next to homes, they're the most expensive items, thanks to available credit, that the average American can own. Cars, for men especially, are phallic symbols of power and control. In the Black male psyche, they compensate for feelings of social emasculation. You can't park a house in front of a church or a nightclub, but arriving in a flashy car garners instant admiration. For Blacks, cars serve as mobile billboards that say, I have arrived. We are a people conditioned to put our faith in the future, live in the now, and respond to promises of quick prosperity. From a marketing perspective, you couldn't ask for a better demographic. If a consumer group believes social status can be achieved through consumerism, why not make millions of dollars exploiting that perception? Many credit card companies operate the most vicious kinds of predatory lending scams, and young African Americans give them particular delight. Before they can even get jobs or establish credit histories, Blacks are among the young demographic high interest credit card companies target. The majority of young Black credit card holders, however, don't have the options some white whose parents will bail them out of debt or who are able to move into well paying jobs have. At young ages, Blacks who bought things they couldn't afford are introduced to an inescapable high interest, credit damaging cycle. The worse they feel about themselves, the more they buy on credit to feel better. No matter how deeply they sink, credit card companies and other greedy, manipulative lenders are always there to help out with more stuff, albeit at inflated prices and interest rates. Listen closely to the payday loan industry's spokesman, and you might recognize the resemblance to the sales pitch used by lenders of the sharecropping era. Their ads sympathetically explain how everybody falls behind now and then, and they, the payday lenders, are there to offer assistance. According to the Consumer Federation of America, the interest alone on payday loans in some states can be as high as 780%. Used car salesmen promise to finance anybody, no matter how bad their credit. Rent to own dealers tell customers they can take furniture, appliances, and electronic equipment home today without worrying about credit checks. It's no coincidence that high interest credit card companies, payday lenders, rent to own companies, and used car dealerships are overrepresented in low income Black and Latino neighborhoods. There could be no better territory than the ones filled with the permanently underemployed or unemployed who have been generationally excluded from economic prosperity. Like the land owning lenders of old, today's pitchmen swear that they're helping these risky customers reestablish good credit. What they fail to disclose is how they grossly inflate prices and demand interest rates so jacked up that uninformed, cash strapped consumers wind up further damaging their already damaged credit. Payday lending customers are allowed to take out additional loans to cover defaults. Risky car buyers can always get another ride, and rent to own defaulters are courted by even sleazier competition. The mentally conditioned can still get their immediate stuff even after repossession, as long as they're willing to pay the black tax, which is higher prices at much higher interest rates. Thus, in the post Civil War days, many blacks wind up trapped in a cycle of never ending debt and a state of economic slavery. Worse yet, they're conditioned to believe that their situations are their own fault. Meanwhile, the good guys, those creditors, those with the resources to hire lobbyists to thwart regulatory opposition, exploit an exploitable demographic and make out like benevolent bandits. Even with less disposable income, we lead the general population in satisfying immediate desires. According to the Selig Center for Economic Growth, Blacks allocate a disproportionate share of their spending to telephone service, apparel, television, radio, sound equipment, and personal care products and services. Our spending habits are closely tracked by marketers of everything from Amoco to Zbart. In 2003, we spent about 6.5 billion on personal care items and service, 131 billion on housing, 56 billion on food, 33 billion on motor vehicles, and 23 billion on clothing, according to Target Market News. Yet, the amount we spend on what goes in our hair and on our bodies is far greater than what we spend on what goes in our heads and into our bank accounts. We spend almost 120 billion on hair care products, cars, clothes, and food, and only about 40.5 billion on healthcare, insurance, education, and books. Faced with such a glaring imbalance in our spending priorities, perhaps it makes more sense to put a little less into a do and a lot more education in earning a college diploma that will allow us to be more competitive in the 21st century. There's an even more depressing image on the flip side of the Black inferiority coin: the lack of economic self determination and relative dearth of successful Black entrepreneurs. Our hunger for respect from whites has not only turned us into easy marks for the products they manufacture, inferiority conditioning has us so discombobulated that we're resistant to supporting Black businesses. Ironically, the group that bucks this trend seems to be hip hop artists who have introduced clothing and product lines that are enthusiastically supported by Black and white youth alike. Where once Kango, Pro-Keds, Adidas, Timberland, and other white owned companies dominated the hip hop fashion world, Russell Simmons' Fat Farm, Sean Diddy Combs' Sean John, Nelly's Apple Bottom, Jay-Z's Rockaware, and 50 Cent's G Unit reign supreme. From a marketing perspective, it would be a mistake to dismiss hip hop artists' ability to promote their version of Black culture to international markets. Some have been savvy enough to not only be the profitable product, but to be producers of the product. However, in most cases, they romanticize Black dysfunction, which only amplifies the buy now, pay later dynamic. Also, it's yet to be seen if their individual accomplishments have made any contribution to true economic empowerment or reversed our fears about saving and investing or tackled any of our other counterproductive mad money ways. The present economic crisis, especially the drastic rate of unemployment, further reminds us that no matter what our circumstances are, they can get worse. The Bureau of Labor Statistics at the time reported that the unemployment rate for African Americans as of August 2009 was 14.9%, compared to 8.6% for whites. For far too many low to no income Blacks, saving for a rainy day remains a foreign concept, and every day it rains. We must also consider that our reluctance to invest, save, or prepare for financial downturns stem in part from betrayals by insurance companies and other financial institutions. I recall neighbors who were denied insurance benefits after the death of the policyholder who paid weekly premiums for years. Their experience, sadly, was all too common for Blacks back then. In 2002, the life insurance company of Georgia agreed to pay $55 million dollars to settle allegations that it charged Blacks higher premiums than it did whites for life insurance for more than 30 years. If they paid $55 million, they made billions of dollars. John Hancock Life Insurance Company in 2009 agreed to settle a class action lawsuit for a reported $24.4 million. The lawsuit alleged that prior to 1959, the company routinely sold lower grade policies to African Americans while it offered full range policies to whites. Additionally, we were confronted with inequities in financial services. Anecdotes about abound of Blacks who failed to read the teeny tiny fine print on credit contracts or who didn't understand complicated payout formulas when they invested in financial institutions. Distrust, fueled by exaggerated and repeated accounts of negative experiences at the hands of these institutions, are what keep many of us from even educating ourselves about the benefits of investing and savings. Thus, we effectively deny ourselves the needed parachute in case of sudden financial instability or disaster. In short, most of us have been brainwashed to believe that preparing for the worst, saving, investing, or building wealth are luxuries for white people only. One of the major intentions of this book is to emphasize that our problems don't exist in isolation. They are part of our past history and present reality. Here, we identify the origins of our buying, spending, and savings habits and the links to a tragic past. Living large while feeling low has a contemporary manifestation of a tendency to overcompensate, to seek the best brands to prove that we are the best, to use our dollars to validate our worth, and to thwart perceptions of subpar status. The historical roots of that dehumanization for slaves meant that they could not claim any status whatsoever. In America, status was and is defined by material possessions. Thus, Blacks have long sought to buy personhood, and we've been trying by buying it ever since. Gotta have it now. Contemporary manifestations. The instant gratification component to our spending and our savings habits. Blacks are susceptible to marketing pleas to have it now, as opposed to saving, investing, or delaying unaffordable purchases. The historical roots. One thing that slavery taught us was that tomorrow is not promised. Due to our precarious existence and uncertain future, Blacks learned to squeeze whatever joy was attainable in the moment. Paying the Black tax, contemporary manifestations. We are willing to pay more at higher prices and interest rates and endure a wide range of financial penalties. The historical roots. Designated second class citizens, we were taught that we have deserved less to get less, to pay more, and to be taken advantage of. Learned helplessness meant that there was nothing we could do about it anyway, so we believed that we deserved humiliation and harm. Dollars and cents. Contemporary manifestation. Systematic exclusion from economic fundamentals of American life. Blacks are easily seduced into buying and are handicapped as builders of personal and communal wealth. Historical roots. Enslaved Blacks were denied the opportunity to learn about money because they were forced to work without pay. Without the benefit of financial literacy, Blacks only saw the consumption side of the equation, not the money side. Education has always been key to self-improvement and financial stability. During slavery, we were denied education and opportunities to fully immerse ourselves in the culture of money management and growth. Because of the psychic deficit caused by a race based self esteem deficiency, we are sitting ducks for mass media's version of consumer education. Buy, buy, buy. Buy now, pay later. Just as we believed in the promise of freedom and the promise of equality, we also respond to the commercial promises of self worth through consumerism. We will continue thinking we can overcompensate for our Blackness if we drive certain cars, wear certain outfits, and drink certain expensive liquors. Until we break free of the conditioning, we will proceed as programmed. Little Scrappy Money Bank starts the next section. We keep a bankroll, a wallet full of credit cards, cup full of crystal, box full of cigars. Now it's time to unplug from the forces that fuel the buy now, pay later madness. The process begins by examining the benefits and costs of our habits. Short-term benefits, overcompensation, gives us a feeling of equality and worth. Name brand and expensive product loyalty tempers our feelings of inferiority, puts us on par with the quality of the product, and allows us to project a false front and garner immediate attention. Willingness to pay higher prices at higher interest rates. We get our stuff now. Resistance to savings or investing. counteracts fear of losing or being cheated out of our money or investments, and gives us a sense of security. Some of the long term costs of overcompensation: it gives a false sense of value and worth based on unpredictable external forces. Overcompensation strengthens a system designed to benefit from our poor money habits. Long term effects of name brand and expensive product loyalty: it makes money is wasted to gain temporary feelings of high status. It makes manufacturers richer while depleting individual and community resources. The long term effects of our willingness to pay higher prices at higher interest rates: depreciable products have no long term value. It continues the cycle of personal debt and guarantees consumers have no money to save, invest, or pass on. And lastly, the long term effects of our hesitancy to save or invest. It fuels paranoia and a false sense of security. It undermines long term personal, family, and community security. It predisposes us to financial miseducation and inability to set and achieve financial goals. Hopefully, we are now conscious that overspending, creating unnecessary debt, and failing to save and invest our money has dire personal and communal consequences. Hopefully, we're ready for change. Tony, an elder care worker who's 36 years old, starts off with the next session starts off with a quote by her. I'm trying to change things for myself and my children. I no longer use credit cards unless I'm going to pay it back immediately. I'm paying down my student loans and other debt. Most importantly, I talk about money and finances with my kids. We have an account that we keep for special things. My kids get to watch the savings grow and share in anticipation of what we're saving for. It's not about instant gratification, it's about long term goals. Former LA Lakers basketball player Magic Johnson is not among the percentage of professional basketball players who went broke after leaving the NBA. Johnson, CEO of Magic Johnson Enterprises, a Los Angeles based company with a net worth of over $700 million, has generated millions while revitalizing urban areas with full service retail outlets. In his book, 32 Ways to Be a Champion in Business, Johnson talks about financial literacy, discipline, money management, and striking a balance that benefits the business, his family, and the extended community. Johnson's attitude is worth emulating. Getting our minds and financial houses in order will not only benefit us individually, but it will have a profound impact on the broader community. Just as the idea of our inferiority was marketed and sold, it must be unsold. As in the days of old, marketing, promotion, and the power of positive propaganda are the keys to real, long lasting solutions. Buy now, pay later positive propaganda cues. Put the why in buy. When you make a purchase, ask yourself, why am I buying this? Am I buying this because I actually need it or because it makes me feel better? Does buying the more expensive high-end brand make you feel important or increase your self-esteem? Did you think about the consequences of your future when you overspend or accrue debt today? Stuff is not enough. How do you define the term well off? Is it what's in your garage or closet, or what's in your bank account and stock portfolio. Thou shalt not commit idolatry. We have a preoccupation with instant gratification through materialism. It needs to be our mission to put it in its place. Reclaim your total self. You are more than the label that you wear. We have survived the worst. Now we need to prepare for the best life has to offer. Scrutinizing the motivators, consciously changing our conversations about money, and becoming financially literate are prerequisites to change. We must also remember our history and thirst for education once Blacks were emancipated. Teachers didn't need a degree to teach during the post slavery era. As soon as a student became literate, that student became a teacher. Consumer education is an essential part of a comprehensive education. As soon as one of us becomes economically literate, it should be our duty to pay it forward. This is why I applaud some Black churches, organizations, and individuals that are attempting to normalize the mysteries of finance. Consider the National Black Church Initiative, 16,000 affiliate churches, saving, education, and investment campaign. The initiative, supported by major financial institutions, seeks to teach low income Blacks how to save, invest, and benefit from long term financial planning. On a smaller scale, Reverend Thurman Evans works with his young congregants, encouraging them to enhance their financial literacy and invest in home ownership rather than lavish weddings. Investment clubs, like the one created by the Bossett family of Beaumont, Texas, also provide valuable grassroots lessons. In the early 1990s, 18 Bossett family members contributed a minimum of $40 per month after starting the Organization Investment Club. By 2020, the family had amassed a portfolio in the upper six figures, according to Black Enterprise magazine. With $750 billion in buying power, we can also create our own positive propaganda arsenal. To add balance to stories about reckless Black celebrities, we can promote down to earth Pennywise heroes like Osceola McCarty of Hattiesburg, Mississippi, a lifelong self proclaimed washerwoman. McCarty, a sixth grade dropout, followed her mother's advice to always save money. Upon her death, McCarty bequeathed an estimated $150,000 of her life savings toward toward college scholarships for deserving but disadvantaged students. Savvy celebrities need not be excluded as teachers either. In a 2009 interview with an online magazine, Beyonce Knowles explained why she hadn't bought many luxury items with her estimated $80 million in earnings. She said, "Honestly, I'm very frugal. I haven't bought a car since I was 16 or any diamonds since I was 17. I have a lot of property. I've invested my money, and I don't have to make any more. Thank God, because I'm set. I'm now able really to be free." It's up to reprogram thinkers like Cheryl Ridley Dorsey, a certified public accountant from Lumberton, New Jersey, to help the next generation break free from Black inferiority conditioning. Concerned that the average high school student doesn't possess basic skills in money management, Ridley Dorsey created Black Street Investment Club to teach children investment and business topics ranging from personal finance to stock market techniques to operating their own businesses. Our sheer numbers are all that's needed to promote a positive propaganda campaign consisting of encouraging examples, doable investment strategies, and other creative programs that take the mystery out of money management and investment. Naysayers will point to failed attempts in the past. The Black Inferiority Campaign has many convinced that we are forever doomed to live lives of financial inferiority. But this is a different time and a different era. We have more examples of success and more tech savvy ways of help willing financial teachers teach. This movement will be fostered by individuals prepared to break free from the psychological grip of the destructive Black inferiority complex. Individuals with renewed minds will be prepared for unprecedented success, mentally armed and ready to reclaim our finances, our fortunes, and our future. So, when he asked the question at the beginning of the chapter, why can't we stop shopping? It's because we were programmed to be that way. And they've exploited us through their marketing campaigns, and they continue to exploit us through their marketing campaigns. Is it necessarily a good thing that we buy things based on what rappers and celebrities suggest? Why are Birkin bags so expensive? What is it about purchasing these items and having this status that makes us feel validated? We have to get to the point where we are validating ourselves, where we are validated as a community because we see each other as valuable. Every African centered person that you pass on the street is an asset that is waiting to be tapped into. People are living libraries with stories and information you need to hear, and you need to begin to look at them as such. There's also a myth that he put forward talking about how much buying power we have. You have to remember that although he listed off some very big numbers talking about the discretionary spending that we do, such as personal health care products, which is where you get to exercise some measure of choice, cars, which is where you get to exercise some measure of choice. Most of our spending is spent on subsistence living. So we're paying for where we live, the food we eat, utility bills, and especially now as the market is crashing and the economy is going around the toilet bowl, we have to look at the fact that most Africans in the Americas are spending their money on survival things, food, shelter, utilities. You have to have a phone. You don't have to have cable television, but it helps. But you have to have a phone in this world. You have to have food. You have to be able to eat. You have to have shelter. You have to have lights, heat, and water. So these are the things that we're spending our money on. And you have to remember that when you look at them equating how we spend our money and what we're spending our money on. So that buying power that he's talking about is not real. It's not money that we actually have access to because we don't own the assets. We don't own utility companies. We don't own a lot of property. We don't own the things that we need and use all the time. Now, if we got to the point where we were leveraging our resources to purchase property and different things like that, it would be different. If things were different, it would be different. But just remember, we don't own that much property, and buying power is not actual monetary power that you can usually leverage. There's maybe a 5 to 7% amount of wiggle room that you actually have some choice and that you actually have some wiggle room and opportunity to exercise choice to siphon off those funds to other things. But most Black people are at subsistence level living. Those that are not at subsistence level living are fighting, treading water because they have insurmountable student loan debt, and they are trying to pay off student loan debt because we're not talked to enough about scholarships and opportunities to finance our education. They always want us to go into debt to be educated. If you have an opportunity to be educated, don't go into debt. Look for a scholarship. Someone has a scholarship for you. All right, guys, that's all I have to say tonight. I want to thank KW Don 7, the Forecast Radio, Sister Ra, and the elders that listen with you. Thank you so much for tuning in and for your gifts. I know that Manning for Mayor is listening. I know that Coco is listening. I know that Oni Tase is listening. I know that Anthony McPhail is listening. I know that Bawana Haguziki is listening. I know that Brother Bakari is listening. I know that Dorico Cooper is listening, and you. Yes, you, dear listener, you too are listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will be back on Tuesday at 9 p.m. reading The American Slave Coast. Thanks again. Peace, guys.